Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Hi guys, this is Shahadat, and in this video today I'm going to review some information that was given to us by this gentleman, and his name is Professor Dr Indrajit Prasad, and he is the head of the Department of Endocrinology of Dhaka Medical College Hospital. Very prestigious position, I might say. And in this particular program, he basically gave us some false information, some lies, I should say. So I wanted to make a review of this lecture, and I will basically show you the evidence that the information that he is giving us is not really correct. And this particular program was broadcasted on the 8th of January 2025. So it's like a month ago. And um, so, based on the given the fact that by 2025, tons and tons of information were published in the internet in different reliable sources like American Diabetic Association website, and then European Association for Diabetic Study, their website, Diabetes UK website, and then Diabetes Canada, Diabetes Australia website. He should have basically got himself educated about this particular topic before speaking to lay people like this. Now, the topic of the discussion was based on the topic was basically ketogenic diet, and he was suggesting that the ketogenic diet is one of the deadliest kind of diet out there. It is going to kill you, kind of like a message. Not exactly that wording, those words, but the message was pretty similar. Now, why did I want to make a review of this particular gentleman's talk in English? Because you can see my English is pretty broken. So why did I feel the need to make this review in English? Well, the reason is I am actually trained in ketogenic nutrition from the American Nutrition Association, and I've completed a 6 months long advanced ketogenic nutrition training, and the training actually was designed for medical doctors and nutritionists and biochemists, people like that. So, having done that course, I actually know far more about the ketogenic diet than probably anybody in Bangladesh, because as far as I know, I'm the only one who has completed this course in and who is in Bangladesh at the moment. So that's why I feel I should make this review and show you the truth rather than. And I think because of this guy or people like him, because they are spreading lies and misinformation, we've got this diabetes pandemic in our country and internationally. It's because of people like him, especially these endocrinologists. I don't understand how. I mean, they seem to feel specially qualified to talk about ketogenic diet, and I don't understand why. Because they, without receiving any proper training on a particular topic, you shouldn't talk about it. Doesn't matter who you are, right? But they seem to just assume that as endocrinologists, they should talk about it. And the funny thing is, listening to this gentleman, I felt that he doesn't really understand endocrinology as well. So he's one of the top endocrinologists in Bangladesh, and I felt he doesn't understand endocrinology, which was quite a shock for me. But anyway, let's cut short the introduction and let's dive into the review of the actual lecture. So, the context of this discussion is one audience member phoned in, because this was a live broadcasted program. So somebody phoned in and complained about his mother trying to follow the JK lifestyle, Jahangir Kobir lifestyle. Jahangir Kobir is a quite renowned medical doctor in Bangladesh who basically promotes a lifestyle which is pretty similar to the low carb lifestyle. So he complained that in his family, because it's a joint family, suddenly his mother is trying to follow a different lifestyle, which is making it difficult for them to for the whole family basically. They're finding it difficult, and so he wants to know whether there is actually scientific validity of this JK lifestyle thing. If there is, then probably they are going to digest the little problems here and there, or deal with them and live with those. But if not, then they would probably try to tell their mom not to follow the lifestyle. So after the gentleman actually asked the question, they started the discussion. That's where I'm starting this video from. So let's get started.
আমাদের এর আগের যিনি দর্শক প্রশ্ন করেছিলেন যে আসলে এটা কিন্তু খুব সত্যিকার অর্থেই একটি গুরুত্বপূর্ণ বিষয় যে একই পরিবারের মধ্যে যদি একজন ডায়াবেটিক রোগী থাকে তাহলে তার খাওয়া দাওয়া সবকিছু মিলে কিন্তু আসলে একটা মানে তৈরি হয় যে আসলে তার জন্য আলাদা খাবার তৈরি করতে হবে কিনা, তার সাথে অন্যদের সাথে যে খাবার দাবার মিলগুলো সময়ের সাথে সম্পৃক্ততা, এই প্রশ্নটি বাস্তবিক একটি প্রশ্ন উনি করেছেন। তো সেই জায়গাটা যদি বলতেন একটু আমাদের।
So the translation in the subtitle was not really appropriate for this particular section, but Dr. Indrajit Prasad is actually going to repeat the information once again, so you'll have a clear understanding. So please pay attention from now on the subtitles.
আপনি প্রশ্ন করেছেন যে আপনার মায়ের খাওয়া দাওয়া সম্পূর্ণ পরিবর্তন হয়ে গেছে। আসলে ডায়াবেটিক ডায়েট বলে কিন্তু পৃথিবীতে কিছু নেই আসলে। ডায়াবেটিক ডায়েট হচ্ছে হেলদি ডায়েট।
So this is my first complaint. Probably this guy doesn't understand how logic works, because on the first statement he said there is no diabetic diet in the world. Okay, so there is no specific diet for diabetic people. And then the next statement he said, so the healthy diet is the diet for diabetic people. How do you say that? I mean, you just said that there is no recommended diet for diabetic people, and the next statement is healthy diet is the diet for diabetic people. Where did you get that from? You could simply say that because there is no recommended diabetic diet, we believe that the healthy diet, whatever that healthy diet means, is the appropriate diet for diabetic people. You could say that, but when you make a statement like that, a generalized statement, you need evidence to support that. Obviously, he didn't do that, and probably he doesn't really understand that he made this blunder. But anyway, now for diabetic people, there is actually a recommended diet now in 2025. I mean, in 2020, probably there wasn't one, but in 2025, there is one, which is the low carbohydrate diet. And I'm going to show you the evidence for that. Now, people may think, okay, how is that going to help? Well, if you think about the disease itself, type 2 diabetes, what is it? They identify this disease when your blood sugar shoots up. Blood sugar is more than normal. And where does this sugar come from? That's a logical question, right? And the answer is it comes from the carbohydrate of your food. So the food that you eat, from the carbohydrate portion, once that gets digested, it becomes glucose and raises your blood sugar level, blood glucose level. So anybody with a little bit of brain will simply say, okay, so if eating carbohydrate is causing my blood to go up, then I shouldn't eat carbohydrate. That should be the obvious solution. But this gentleman, with all his education and training and degrees, doesn't seem to understand that. He is recommending a diet, healthy diet, as he says, which has a ton of carbohydrate in it. I don't understand how that is going to be an appropriate diet for people whose bodies cannot actually deal with or cannot manage sugar, glucose appropriately. But let's hear. Now, some of you might say that, okay, if you cut out carbohydrate, that is going to be risky because we need carbohydrate for our energy. Well, let me quickly show you the evidence before I go forward. So this is the National Academy's document. This document particularly was published in 2005. I'm going to show you the name of the document, but before going to the name, let me show you the recommendation, that the bit that I want you to really look into. They said clinical effects of inadequate intake of carbohydrate, because this section is about carbohydrate intake. And what they said is, quote, the lower limit of dietary carbohydrate compatible with life apparently is 0, provided that adequate amounts of protein and fat are consumed. So, what basically they are saying is you don't really need carbohydrate, need in the sense that you don't really have to eat carbohydrate. You need glucose to run your body, but your body can actually produce the glucose as necessary. So, because of that, you don't need to eat carbohydrate. So, as a human being, if you never, ever in your life eat a single bit of carbohydrate, you will be perfectly fine. So, let me quickly show you the name of the document. Because I'm in page 275, I'll try to go to the top. Dietary reference intakes for energy, carbohydrate, fiber. This is the document. This is the document. So basically, I've shown you that having no carbohydrate at all is okay, according to the National Academy's document published back in 2005. I don't understand how he doesn't know that. Anyway, let's listen to him a little bit more, and then you'll understand that he is basically trying to promote a high carb diet.
জি জি জি
সুষম খাদ্যের কথা আপনি শুনেছেন, সেই সুষম খাদ্য সবসময় ছোটবেলা থেকে যেরকম শুনে
জি জি
এসেছেন যে সুষম খাদ্য আমাদের শরীর গঠন করে, আমাদের রোগ প্রতিরোধ ক্ষমতা
জি জি জি
আমাদের দেয় এবং মানুষের শরীরকে সুস্থ রাখে সুষম খাদ্য।
So now he's talking about the balanced diet. So his version of the healthy diet is the balanced diet. Now, he's referring to the definition that we learned in our childhood of this balanced diet, and we learned that there are six parts, components of a balanced diet. Number one was carbohydrate. Number two was protein. Number three was fat. Number four was vitamins. Number five, minerals. Number six, water. Now, I've just shown you the document that said carbohydrate is not necessary in our diet. That means the balanced diet, the new definition of a balanced diet should be, it should have five things: protein, fat, minerals, vitamin, and water. But he doesn't seem to know that. And so he recommends us, for type 2 diabetic patients, eating tons of carbohydrates and then deal with the blood sugar spike with medication. I wonder why.
কিন্তু ইদানিং যেটা দেখা যাচ্ছে যে সোশ্যাল মিডিয়াতে আপনারা দেখবেন যে ভাত খাওয়া বন্ধ করে দিচ্ছে, রুটি খাওয়া
জি
বন্ধ
জি
করে
জি
দিচ্ছে,
সেটাই
মাখন খাচ্ছে, ঘি খাচ্ছে, ডেইলি 4টা করে ডিমের কুসুম খাচ্ছে, কেমন?
জি
তো নানান রকম উদ্ভট সমস্ত ফ্যাট ডায়েট বলি আমরা এগুলোকে।
So he's saying that nowadays, because of the social media, people are avoiding bread and rice eating. They're not eating those things at all. And then they're having like 4 egg yolks every day. And then they're having ghee and butter. And according to him, this is a strange way of eating. And he thinks it's a fad diet.
আরেকটা জিনিস বলা হয় এটাকে কেটো ডায়েট বলা হয়।
And he thinks it's called keto diet. I tried to correct him on that as well. The pronunciation is keto diet. Ketone, not keton. It's ketone or keto diet. Okay, sorry. You see, I was trained for 6 months on this particular topic. So if somebody pronounces it wrong, yeah, it hurts. So I had to do that. So the keto diet, he thinks that fad diet is the keto diet.
তো যে গবেষণাগুলো দেখা যাচ্ছে প্রায়
These advertisements, YouTube, I hate you.
25,000 পেশেন্টকে নিয়ে একটা গবেষণা হয়েছে এবং সেটা ইউরোপিয়ান যে কার্ডিওলজি অ্যাসোসিয়েশনের ওয়েবসাইটে গেলে আপনি দেখবেন দেখা যাচ্ছে যারা এই ধরনের লো কার্বোহাইড্রেট ডায়েট খায়, যেমন ওনার মাকে যেরকম সাজেস্ট করা হয়েছে বিভিন্ন রকম রেস্ট্রিকশন, সেই লো কার্বোহাইড্রেট ডায়েট খাওয়ার কারণে কিন্তু দেখা যাচ্ছে যে হৃদরোগে মৃত্যুর ঝুঁকি আসলে 52% বেড়ে যাচ্ছে। এই যে সোশ্যাল মিডিয়ায় যেগুলো প্রচার হচ্ছে,
হ্যাঁ, আমরা সেটি অপপ্রচারের ফলই এগুলো।
হ্যাঁ, এবং যেটা দেখা যাচ্ছে যদি এই লো কার্বোহাইড্রেট কেটোজেনিক ডায়েট খাওয়া হয় তাহলে কিন্তু ব্রেন স্ট্রোক হয়ে মৃত্যুর ঝুঁকি কিন্তু 50% বেড়ে যাচ্ছে এবং ক্যান্সার হয়ে মৃত্যুর ঝুঁকি 35% বেড়ে যাচ্ছে। এটা হচ্ছে যে খুব বড় একটা গবেষণার ফল।
একদম।
So there he referred to a study published back in 2019. We'll have a look at the study, so we'll get the date from there, maybe 2018. Um, and they suggested, that particular research suggested that if you consume a ketogenic kind of diet, I mean low carbohydrate diet, they didn't use the word ketogenic in their study. So if you avoid carbohydrate consumption, then you are going to have some risks. So that was his first evidence. Let's quickly go and check the evidence before we go any further. So this is the European Society of Cardiology. This is the society he was talking about, even though he said European Cardiology Association. There is no organization like that. But this is the back in 2018. This is the press release they made based on the paper published by Professor Monsieur Banach, and they recommended that people should not try to use a low carb diet because they thought it was dangerous. Now, let's quickly go to the actual study because this is a press release. Let's quickly go to the study and read the study. Let me show you the title of the study: Lower Carbohydrate Diets and Cause Specific Mortality, a Population-Based Cohort Study and Pooling of Prospective Studies. Mohsin Mazidi was the first author, and Messi Banak is here as well. So you understand that this is the paper he is talking about, and this paper actually made those claims. But I think the risk ratio that Dr. Indrajit just told us was not accurate. He said 52%, and then 50%, and 32%, right? And here, what we get is, no, probably he's right. After adjustments, the overall risk was 32% increment, cardiovascular disease risk was 50%, and cerebrovascular was 51%, and cancer was 36%. So, so yeah, he was pretty close to the data. Now, this paper was published in 2019, right? European Heart Journal, and this paper was published in 2019. Now, according to this study, the conclusion of the study is, quote, our study suggests a potentially unfavorable association, remember, this is not causation. This is a kind of study. I started with a quote, right? This is a study that cannot give us causation. This can only give us association, guesswork, basically. So let me start again. Conclusion, quote, our study suggests a potentially unfavorable association of LCD, low carbohydrate diet, with overall and cause specific mortality based on both new analysis of the established cohort and by pooling previous cohort studies. Given the nature of the study, causality cannot be proven. We cannot rule out residual bias. Nevertheless, further studies are needed to extend these important findings, which, if confirmed, may suggest a need to rethink recommendations for LCD in clinical practice. So, if you read this study, then you know that we obviously will take this conclusion, their findings, with due importance. And because this is a study that cannot give us causality, we shouldn't make statements like this low carbohydrate diet causes problems. We shouldn't make statements like that. And now let me quickly show you a comment left by somebody in this particular paper. How low should we go on low carbohydrate diet? This was a comment against this particular paper by Sequeira V and Bartero E and Mac C. These three authors, and I've got the thing open here. And low carbohydrate diet for restriction replace with balance. Oh, sorry, not this one. It's the other one. I've got it in the wrong order. Not here. Let me put it in the right place. So this is the one. See the title I just read. How low should we go on low carbohydrate diets? And it was Vasco Siqueira and Eduardo Bertero. I probably butchered his name. Christoph Mack. So these are the writers, and what they said: the joint position statement from the American Diabetes Association and the European Association for the Study of Diabetes recommends low carbohydrate diet (LCDs) for the management of diabetes, and they gave the reference there. I don't have access to the reference in this particular paper because you have to pay to get there, but I have found the document nonetheless. I'll show you in a second. Low carbohydrate diets defined as diets limiting carbohydrate intake below 26% of total daily energy intake improved blood glucose levels in patients with diabetes, while moderate carbohydrate restriction, like 26% to 45% of total energy from carbohydrate, had no added value. Furthermore, LCD improves the outcome of patients with metabolic syndrome by lowering blood glucose, cholesterol, and triglyceride concentrations. And then he gave the reference for that claim as well. So obviously, this is a contradictory information. This was published in, where is it? It was published in March 2020. So after the original paper publication in 2019, they came back with a comment, and they suggested that there are conflicting evidence or contradicting evidence out there. And in response, what the original authors, in response, what they said, okay, if they say this, probably we didn't use the low carbohydrate diet word correctly. We changed that word to say lower carbohydrate diet. That's what they said. Instead of using low, they changed the word with lower carbohydrate diet. And then finally, they just kind of like said, okay, let's just do a little bit of compromise and come in the middle and meet there, which was like a compromise. It was basically a compromise without any evidence, really, without any evidence. Now, I tried to find out that original paper where the ADA and EASD came up with the joint statement where they said low carbohydrate diet is actually good for type 2 diabetes patients. And when I searched in Google AI gave me this response. It said, according to a joint position statement from the American Diabetes Association ADA and the European Association for the Study of Diabetes EASD, low carbohydrate diet can be a suitable option for managing type 2 diabetes in adults, with an emphasis on individualized dietary approaches based on individual needs and preferences. So basically, they're giving us the summary, and the summary was that it was recommended by the ADA and EASD. I couldn't find the EASD and ADA joint statement from 2019, but I found the one from 2022. And then I found the UK Diabetic Association's statement about it and the Canadian Diabetic Association's statement about it. So let me show you the ADA statement and management of hyperglycemia in type 2 diabetes 2022. That's the document I'm showing you now. And in this document, where is it? Where is it? In this document, in the nutrition therapy section, they said A network of analysis comparing trials of 9 dietary approaches for more than 12 weeks duration demonstrated reductions in HbA1c from 9 to 5.1 millimole per mole with all approaches compared with a control diet. Greater glycemic benefits were seen in the Mediterranean diet and low carbohydrate diet. So now they basically confirmed that low carbohydrate diet seemed to be very effective for type 2 diabetic patients. And that's why they came up with the joint position statement where they said low carbohydrate diet should be recommended for type 2 diabetics back in 2022. So we are in 2025, and our expert doesn't seem to have read this document, which is weird because he's a professor of this topic. He feels uh, knowledgeable enough to talk about it, but looks like he is not up to date. Okay, now this is Diabetes UK, and what they are saying is the same thing. Together with the Scientific Advisory Committee of Nutrition, we have released a report which recommends lower carb diets as short-term effective option for adults with type 2 diabetes who have obesity or overweight. This includes low carb diets providing 50 to 130 gram carbs a day. So they are recommending the low carb diet as well. The third document I'm going to show you is the Canadian Journal of Diabetes published this document, and what is the date? 2020 is when they published it. So this document is even older than the 2022 ADA recommendation, and they also said in their recommendation section, where is it? For people with type 2 diabetes, let me make it a bit bigger so it's easier to see. This current review indicates a low carbohydrate diet may be effective for weight loss and improve glycemic control with a reduction in need for anti-hyperglycemic therapies. So they are basically saying the same thing. So there are tons of information suggesting that a low carbohydrate diet, ketogenic diet, as we say, is actually safe. And I've already shown you a document suggesting that ketogenic diet, even if you get rid of all carbohydrates from your diet, that is still safe. That was published back in 2005. But looks like our expert doesn't really know that. Right, let's go back and listen to him for a few more minutes.
তো সেজন্য আমরা বলবো যে দর্শক আপনি সোশ্যাল মিডিয়ায় কথাবার্তায় বিভ্রান্ত না হয়ে যেটা বললাম সুষম খাদ্য গ্রহণ করবেন এবং আপনার চিকিৎসক আপনার বন্ধু তার
If the physician lies like this, if the physician is ignorant as yourself, then it's better for the person to actually listen to the social media. Then they can actually at least tell them that, oh, well, I got the information from social media, which is not really reliable. But if they get the same information from a physician, if they get the wrong information from a physician, and then they are harmed, then I mean, you feel like you are screwed, completely screwed, right? My goodness, I've got a call coming in. I cannot take that now. So I'm going to stop that. Okay. The other thing I need to quickly do is I need to stop my WhatsApp so that. Okay. Where is it? Not that one. I'll go back here. Okay. So let's listen to him again.
তার সাথে সরাসরি কথা বলে আপনি আপনার চিকিৎসা নেবেন এবং প্রয়োজনে একজন সার্টিফাইড নিউট্রিশনিস্ট তার সাথে কথা বলে আপনি আপনার খাদ্য তালিকা খাদ্য প্রণালী আপনি গ্রহণ করবেন একজন সার্টিফাইড নিউট্রিশনে যিনি পাশ করা নিউট্রিশনে এবং একজন চিকিৎসকের সাথে কথা বলে সেগুলো ভেরিফাই করে ওষুধপত্র অ্যাডজাস্ট করে সুন্দরভাবে আন্তর্জাতিক যে মানদণ্ড আন্তর্জাতিক যে গাইডলাইন সেটা অনুযায়ী চিকিৎসা করা তাহলে কিন্তু বিভ্রান্ত হওয়ার এবং প্রতারিত হওয়ার কোনো সুযোগ থাকবে না।
Well, I just did that. I've shown you the evidence. I've done the verification, and looks like what this guy is saying is false, lies.
এবং আসলে খাবার দাবারের বিষয়গুলো যেটি রয়েছে যে আমরা তো খাবার দাবার এমন নয় যে ডায়াবেটিক রোগীর জন্য আলাদা একটি গ্রহ থেকে খাবার নিয়ে আসতে হবে। এই খাবারগুলোকেই আসলে নিয়ন্ত্রণের মাধ্যমে যে জায়গাগুলো পরিমিত পরিমাণ যেটি আপনার আসলে নিউট্রিশনিস্ট বা ডায়েটিশিয়ান দিয়ে থাকেন সে অনুযায়ী করলে কিন্তু আসলে খুব বেশি এলোমেলো করার প্রয়োজন হবে না।
This gentleman is also a doctor, and obviously he has to show that he is such an idiot because he is not an expert of diabetes disease. He is not an endocrinologist, but he has to give his opinion because he learned it somewhere. So, because he's a doctor, he must be saying the right thing, must be saying the correct thing. And obviously, what he said there is absolutely crazy. What is suggesting that you should control your portions, which is a crazy idea. It was never tested, and it was never found to be effective in dealing with type 2 diabetes. But that's what he's kind of trying to suggest. So anyway, let's ignore him. Let's listen to.
যে এই যে লো কার্বোহাইড্রেট ডায়েটের কথা বলা হচ্ছে, তাই না, কেটোজেনিক ডায়েট, এবং যে গবেষণা ল্যান্সেট আপনি জানেন যে ওয়ার্ল্ডের 3টা মানে জার্নাল, হাই ইম্প্যাক্ট জার্নালের মধ্যে একটা।
So he is now going to show off that he knows so much about the ketogenic diet. He has read studies published in Lancet, the best journal in the world, and he's going to give you data from there. So pay attention, okay?
সো সেখানে কিন্তু জাতা গবেষণা কিন্তু প্রকাশিত হয় না। সেই ল্যান্সেট গবেষণা দেখা গেছে, সেই জার্নালে একটা প্রকাশনা দেখা গেছে, যারা 40%-এর কম কার্বোহাইড্রেট খাচ্ছেন এবং যারা 70%-এর বেশি কার্বোহাইড্রেট খাচ্ছেন, তাদের কিন্তু উভয়ের মৃত্যুর ঝুঁকি অনেক বেশি। এবং কেটো ডায়েটে থাকে মাত্র 10% কার্বোহাইড্রেট, এসডিকে যেটা বলে স্ট্যান্ডার্ড কেটো ডায়েট, সে কিন্তু 10% মাত্র কার্বোহাইড্রেট থাকে, এবং কেউ কেউ ওভার জিরাসে আরও কম কার্বোহাইড্রেট খায়। সো সেখানে দেখা যাচ্ছে হ্যাজার্ড রেশিও 2 এর কাছাকাছি চলে আসছে, মৃত্যুর ঝুঁকি অনেক বেড়ে যাচ্ছে। এবং আমাদের দেশে অন অ্যান অ্যাভারেজ 85% কার্বোহাইড্রেট খায় মানুষ, সেটাও আবার খারাপ। কেমন? 70%-এর বেশি কার্বোহাইড্রেট খেলেও কিন্তু মৃত্যুর ঝুঁকি বাড়বে, আবার 40%-এর কম কার্বোহাইড্রেট খেলে মৃত্যুর ঝুঁকি বাড়ছে। কিন্তু সোশ্যাল মিডিয়া এমন অবস্থা হয়েছে যে কার্বোহাইড্রেট হচ্ছে, এগুলোকে বলা হচ্ছে পয়জন, এমনভাবে প্রচার করা হচ্ছে। এটা ঠিক না। আমাদের রেডি সোর্স অফ এনার্জি হচ্ছে কার্বোহাইড্রেট।
So he thinks our ready source of energy is carbohydrate, and that's why we should eat carbohydrate, even though I've shown you evidence suggesting that is not really necessary. Our body can burn fat as well. So if you don't have carbohydrate, our body will happily burn fat, produce ketones. Ketone will feed the brain, and it'll be fantastic. But he doesn't seem to know that. Now, he basically tried to show off his expertise by referring to another study, and that was published in Lancet. Now, let's look at that paper then. So here is the paper. Dietary carbohydrate intake and mortality, a prospective cohort study and meta-analysis. Now, right from the name, you can see that this is again an observational epidemiological study. So this cannot give us any causative statement, causative proof. It can only give us associations, basically educated guesses. So these information cannot be used as evidences. And among scientists, the standard is that they don't talk about the outcome of such a study among lay people. So when you are addressing lay people, give me quickly a second. Yeah, what I was saying is, when you are talking about this study with lay people, you will give them wrong impression, because this kind of studies cannot prove anything, cannot give us any proof. This can only give us guesses, and guesses need to be verified before it can be delivered to the mass. So the information that he just shared, it shouldn't have been shared at all, because this study is just giving us guesses. It's not an evidence. It's just a guess. He doesn't seem to understand that. Okay, now this paper did find, as he recommended, that, or I shouldn't say find, this paper basically saw, based on their data analysis, that if you consume less than 40% carbohydrate, or let me say it in the appropriate way, which is, according to their data, people who ate less than 40% carbohydrate had more problems. People who had more than 70% carbohydrate had more problems. That's based on their data. And so they claim that this should be taken into consideration as well. And this paper was published back in, where is it? 2018. So it's pretty old paper, and since then we have made quite a bit of change. Quite a bit of research has taken place, and I already showed you the joint position statement from EASD and ADA based on the 2022 statement that they made. So this kind of this study now is kind of like irrelevant. You don't really need to look into it, but because he mentioned it, let me quickly show you interesting thing. So this was their finding, and they also found that having animal fat is a problem. If you read the interpretation, let me just quickly read the interpretation and let's take it from there. Interpretation, quote, both high and low percentages of carbohydrate diets were associated with increased mortality, with minimal risk observed at 50 to 55% carbohydrate intake. Low carbohydrate diet patterns favoring animal derived protein and fat sources from sources such as lamb, beef, pork, and chicken were associated with higher mortality, whereas those that favored plant derived protein and fat intake from sources such as vegetables, nuts, peanut butter, and whole grain breads were associated with lower mortality, suggesting that the source of food notably modifies the association between carbohydrate intake and mortality. So that's their finding. They basically found animal fat to be terrible. Now, in their discussion, they actually talked about another paper. You see here, two graphs were superimposed, and the graph that is highlighted in blue, or a shade of blue, that was a different paper, and that paper was published in 2017. Now, in terms of the quality of this paper, this is a far better quality paper. Let me prove that to you, because otherwise you will say, you said something, but I didn't see the proof. Now, the settlement paper, the one our expert referred to, let's call it settlement paper. So the settlement papers method section says, we studied 15,428 adults aged 45 to 64 years in 4 US communities who completed a dietary questionnaire at enrollment in atherosclerosis risk in communities study between 1987 and 1989, and who did not report extreme caloric intake. So that was their quality of the participants. Now, if I show you the other study, the Debunking study that I brought up, this study was a far better study, because this study said the prospective urban-rural epidemiology, or in short PURE, P-U-R-E, study is a large epidemiological cohort study of individuals aged 35 to 70. So it's a wider age range. Years enrolled between January 1, 2003 and March 31st, 2013. In 18 countries with a median follow-up of 7.4 years, and the dietary intake of 135,335 individuals were recorded using validated food frequency questionnaires. So they just didn't take the answer, they also validated the answer that these participants provided. The information provided by the participants were validated. It was conducted in 18 different countries. So based on all this is a far better study. And this study suggested that, let's read the interpretation. They said, quote, high carbohydrate intake was associated with higher risk of total mortality, whereas total fat and individual types of fat were related to lower total mortality. Total fat and types of fat were not associated with cardiovascular disease, myocardial infarction, or cardiovascular disease mortality, whereas saturated fat had an inverse association with stroke. Global dietary guidelines should be reconsidered in light of these findings. So, as you see, this is a far better study published in the same Lancet, and they are saying, they are contradicting some of the findings of the other paper, of the settlement paper. Now, in the settlement paper, there was a re-review of the settlement paper, and I'm going to show you that now, which was published in 2022. Again, it was published in the Lancet. Lancet was as the best journal, and the title was Re-Evaluating Low Carbohydrate Diets and Mortality. And in this paper, what the experts said is, quote, first, in terms of the relevance and accuracy, Seidlman and colleagues did not investigate a low-carbohydrate diet as a specific intervention, contrary to the general understanding and expectation of the patients and healthcare providers. So what basically they're saying is the way the settlement paper was phrased, it sounded like they're talking about a causation, but they didn't really test the consumption of low carbohydrate diet, so they shouldn't be talking about it. And people should understand that this was not really a tested hypothesis. It was just a hypothesis, a guessed hypothesis. Okay. Next, quote, instead, carbohydrate consumption were evaluated using data from the atherosclerosis risk in communities ARIC study, which was not designed for the purpose. Of note, Seidelman and colleagues relied on semi-quantitative food frequency questionnaires that have been criticized for high error rates. Data were collected twice per patient with a 6-year interval. Furthermore, the benefits of the therapeutic carbohydrate restriction were not discussed in the article. Strength of association is generally taken to be the most important criterion when considering causality in nutritional epidemiology. In the article, that means in the settlement paper, the hazard ratio for the lowest carbohydrate intake quintile compared to the moderate carbohydrate intake was 1.2, which is very close to 50-50 odds. In multivariable analysis, low carbohydrate diets in various forms have provided overwhelming benefits in treating obesity, diabetes, and metabolic syndrome, which predicts a reduction in all-cause mortality, whereas the article suggested an increase. Settleman and colleagues did not indicate what other factors are presumed to override such a reduction or include any numerical calculations to show the relative contribution of different factors. In summary, no low-carbohydrate diet was tested in ARIC study. As such, we believe that the Siddleman and colleagues study conclusions, if taken as a bias for recommendations, might be a risk in restricting patient choices, inhibiting future research, and impeding the advancement of public health. I mean, I don't need to say anything more than that, right? Basically, they are simply saying that don't rely on the settlement paper at all. And sadly, our expert here is still holding on to that paper, and he's ignoring all the other evidence that I've just shown you, and he's claiming to be an expert in ketogenic diet. I don't understand how. And that's the sad thing about these endocrinologists. People take them seriously. People take them as they are going to save them from type 2 diabetes. And look at the content they are providing. Look at the state of their knowledge. Look at the level of ignorance that they're having. It's unbelievable. Well, hopefully, if you have type 2 diabetes, I would recommend that look into ketogenic diet. Probably you will be able to save yourself from the ketogenic diet, the type 2 diabetes. I'll see you later. Assalamu alaikum.